Since I was a little girl, I dreamed of my wedding day. I imagined wearing a long white dress and walking down the aisle. The flowers, the music, and the happy smiles made my dream feel magical. I often watched movies about weddings and imagined my own special day. It was a dream that stayed in my heart for many years. I loved looking at pictures of beautiful weddings in magazines. The decorations, the cakes, and the lovely dresses always made me smile. I imagined my wedding in a big garden with flowers everywhere. In my dream, the sun was shining and the air smelled sweet. I wanted my wedding to feel like a fairy tale. Sometimes I played wedding with my dolls when I was a child. My favorite doll wore a tiny white dress, and my teddy bear was the groom. I pretended to say, "I do," and danced around my room. Even then, I knew I wanted my wedding to be full of love and happiness. My heart was full of dreams for the future. As I grew older, my dream became stronger. I knew that one day I would find someone special. I wanted to marry a kind, loving, and funny person. I believed that love was a beautiful adventure. I didn't know when or how it would happen, but I knew my wedding day would be one of the happiest days of my life. One day my life changed forever. I met someone special, someone who made my heart feel warm. His name is Daniel, and from the first moment I knew he was different. He had a big smile, kind eyes, and a laugh that made me happy. I felt something special in my heart when I saw him. We met at a cafe on a rainy afternoon. I was reading a book when he sat at the table next to me. He smiled and asked, "What are you reading?" We started talking and time passed so quickly. I had never met someone so kind and funny. That day, I knew something wonderful was beginning. After that, we spent more time together. We walked in the park, watched movies, and talked about everything. Every time I saw him, my heart felt light and happy. He made me laugh even on bad days. I knew I had found someone truly special. One evening he surprised me with a letter. In it, he wrote about how happy he was to know me. He said I made his life better. My heart was full of joy. That was the moment I realized I was in love. I knew that one day we would have our dream wedding together. One beautiful evening, Daniel planned something special. He took me to the beach where the sun was setting. The sky was pink and orange, and the waves were soft. He held my hand and smiled at me. My heart was beating fast, but I didn't know why. We walked along the shore, talking and laughing. He told me how much he loved me. Then he stopped and took something from his pocket. It was a small, beautiful box. My heart raced as he opened it. Inside was a shiny ring that sparkled in the sunlight. Daniel looked into my eyes and said, "Will you marry me?" For a moment I couldn't speak. My heart was full of love and happiness. Then I smiled and said, "Yes." He put the ring on my finger and I hugged him tight. It was the most beautiful moment of my life. The people on the beach clapped and cheered for us. I felt like I was in a dream. We sat on the sand, watching the sunset together. I couldn't stop looking at my ring. It was a perfect moment, and I knew my dream was coming true. The next morning I woke up feeling so happy. The first thing I did was look at my ring. It was beautiful and shiny, and it reminded me of our special moment. I couldn't wait to tell my family. I picked up my phone and called my parents right away. My mom answered the phone and I took a deep breath. "Mom, Daniel proposed to me," I said excitedly. For a moment she was silent, and then she screamed with joy. My dad took the phone and said, "Congratulations, sweetheart." They were both so happy for me. After that, I told my best friend, Emma. When she heard the news, she started crying. "I'm so happy for you," she said. We talked for hours, making plans for the wedding. She promised to help me with everything. I felt so lucky to have her as my friend. That evening, my family and I had dinner together. My mom hugged me and said, "This is the beginning of a beautiful journey." My dad shook Daniel's hand and welcomed him into the family. It was a wonderful moment. I knew my wedding would be full of love. Daniel and I sat together thinking about our wedding date. We wanted a beautiful day, not too hot and not too cold. After talking for a long time, we chose April 20th. Spring was perfect, with flowers blooming and the sun shining. Felt like the right choice. We checked the calendar and talked to our families. Everyone agreed it was a wonderful date. My mom smiled and said, "Spring is the season of new beginnings." That made me even happier. April 20th became our special day, and we marked it on our calendars. After choosing the date, we started thinking about our wedding theme. I wanted something romantic and elegant. Daniel likes simple and natural decorations. We decided on a garden wedding with white and pink flowers. It was exactly what I had dreamed of. That night, I looked at my calendar and smiled. In a few months, I would be a bride. My heart was full of excitement. I closed my eyes and imagined walking down the aisle. I couldn't wait for my dream wedding to become real. The day had finally arrived to find my wedding dress. My mom, my best friend Emma, and I went to a beautiful bridal shop. The moment I walked in, I saw rows of white dresses. Some were big and puffy, others simple and elegant. My heart was full of excitement. I tried on many dresses, but none felt perfect. Some were too big, others too shiny. I wanted to find a dress that made me feel like a princess. Then, the shop assistant brought a dress with lace and small pearls. It was simple but beautiful. I stepped into the dress and looked in the mirror. It was perfect. The fabric was soft, and the lace details were delicate. My mom's eyes filled with tears. "You look beautiful," she said. Emma smiled and clapped her hands. "This is the one." I twirled around and felt like a bride for the first time. It was a magical moment. The dress was exactly how I had dreamed. I knew that when I walked down the aisle, Daniel would love it. My wedding day was getting closer and I was ready. Planning a wedding was exciting but also a lot of work. Daniel and I made a list of everything we needed to do. We had to find a place, choose flowers, and send invitations. There were so many details, but we were happy to do it together. We spent hours looking at wedding ideas. We wanted something romantic and simple. We looked at different decorations, cakes, and music choices. Every little detail made our wedding feel more real. It was fun to imagine our big day. One evening, we sat with our families to plan the guest list. We wanted to invite close friends and family. My mom helped with the seating arrangements. Daniel's father gave great advice about the ceremony. Everyone was excited to help. After a long week of planning, we took a deep breath. Things were coming together. The wedding was not just a dream anymore. It was really happening. We looked at each other and smiled. Soon we would be husband and wife. Choosing the perfect wedding venue was important to us. We wanted a place that felt magical and special. After visiting many locations, we found a beautiful garden. It had tall trees, green grass, and colorful flowers. It was perfect. As we walked through the garden, I imagined the wedding day. I saw white chairs, pink flowers, and fairy lights in the trees. The sound of birds made everything feel peaceful. It was exactly what I had dreamed of. Daniel held my hand and smiled. "This is the one," he said. We booked the venue right away. The owner was very kind and showed us where everything would be. He explained where the guests would sit and where we would say our vows. I could already imagine myself walking down the aisle. That evening I told my mom about the venue. She was so happy. "It sounds like a fairy tale," she said. I smiled because it truly felt like one. My dream wedding was coming to life. Now that we had the venue, it was time to choose the decorations. I wanted soft colors, candles, and fairy lights. I imagined a romantic and warm atmosphere. Everything had to feel beautiful and elegant. We went to a wedding shop to look at decorations. There were so many flowers, ribbons, and table settings. I loved the white and pink roses. Daniel liked the idea of small lanterns on the tables. We decided to combine both ideas. The florist helped us pick the best flowers for the season. She showed us beautiful bouquets with roses and lilies. I held one and smiled. "This is perfect," I said. Everything was coming together. At home we made a mood board with pictures of our decorations. Looking at it made me feel so happy. Every little detail was a piece of our love story. I couldn't wait to see everything on our wedding day. The wedding cake was one of my favorite parts of the planning. We visited a famous bakery that made beautiful cakes. When we walked in, the smell of vanilla and chocolate filled the air. My mouth watered just thinking about it. The baker showed us different cake designs. Some were tall, others had flowers made of sugar. We wanted something simple but elegant. We chose a white cake with soft pink details and fresh strawberries on top. It looked delicious. Next, we had to choose the flavor. The baker gave us small samples to taste. There was chocolate, vanilla, and even lemon. My favorite was vanilla with a light cream filling. Daniel loved it too. We smiled at each other and knew it was the perfect choice. As we left the bakery, I felt so excited. The cake was not just a dessert, it was part of our special day. I imagined us cutting it together and sharing the first bite. It was another dream coming true. The day had come to try on my dress again. I was excited but also a little nervous. What if it didn't fit? What if I didn't love it as much as before? My mom and Emma came with me for support. They were just as excited as I was. When I put the dress on, I looked in the mirror and smiled. It was still perfect. The lace, the pearls, and the way it fit made me feel beautiful. My mom's eyes filled with tears. "You look like a princess," she said. Emma clapped her hands and hugged me. The seamstress made small adjustments to make it fit even better. She pinned a few places and asked me to walk around. The dress moved gracefully, and I felt like a bride. "It's perfect," I whispered. I couldn't wait for Daniel to see me in it. Before leaving, I put on my veil. Looking at myself in the mirror, I finally realized it was really happening. My wedding was just a few weeks away. My heart was full of joy. Soon, I would be walking down the aisle to marry the love of my life. With only 1 week left, I could hardly believe it. Everything was ready: the dress, the decorations, the cake. I felt both excited and nervous. Daniel and I checked every detail to make sure everything was perfect. We wanted our wedding day to be unforgettable. My friends helped me with the final preparations. Emma made a checklist to keep everything organized. We confirmed the guest list and talked to the florist one last time. My mom reminded me to stay calm and enjoy every moment. At night, I sat in my room and thought about the big day. I imagined myself walking down the aisle, holding Daniel's hands and saying, "I do." Felt like a dream coming true. I smiled, knowing that I was ready for this new adventure. The days passed quickly, and my excitement grew. Everyone around me was happy and supportive. I felt so lucky to have wonderful family and friends. Soon I would be a bride, and my heart was full of love and joy. The night before my wedding was special. I stayed at my parents' house, just like when I was a little girl. My mom made my favorite dinner, and we sat together talking about happy memories. She told me stories about her own wedding day. Emma stayed over, and we had a little celebration. We did our nails, drank tea, and laughed about old times. "Tomorrow, you will be a married woman," she said. I smiled, but inside I felt a little nervous. It was a big step in my life. Before bed, I wrote a letter to Daniel. I wanted to tell him how much I loved him. I wrote about our first meeting, our happy moments, and my excitement for our future. I folded the letter and put it in a small envelope. Tomorrow I would give it to him. Lying in bed, I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. My heart was full of emotions: happiness, love, and a little bit of nervousness. I knew that tomorrow would be the most beautiful day of my life. I couldn't wait for the morning to come. I woke up early on my wedding day. The sun was shining, and the birds were singing. It was a perfect morning. My heart felt light and happy. "Today is the day," I whispered to myself. I smiled, feeling a mix of excitement and joy. My mom came into my room and hugged me. "Are you ready, my love?" she asked. I nodded and smiled. My dad walked in and kissed my forehead. "You will be the most beautiful bride," he said. I felt so loved and supported. Breakfast was light, just some tea and fruit. I wanted to feel fresh and calm. My bridesmaids arrived, and we all got ready together. There was laughter, music, and happy conversations. Everything felt magical. As I looked in the mirror, I took a deep breath. In a few hours, I would be walking down the aisle. My hands were shaking, but my heart was full of love. I was ready to start this new chapter with Daniel. The makeup artist arrived and started working on my face. She used soft colors to make me look natural and elegant. I wanted to feel beautiful but still like myself. My hair was styled into soft waves, and a delicate flower crown completed the look. Emma helped me put on my dress. The fabric felt soft against my skin, and the lace details shimmered in the light. My mom adjusted my veil, and I looked at myself in the mirror. "You are glowing," she said. I felt like a real bride. My bridesmaids were dressed in soft pink dresses. They looked beautiful and happy. We took some pictures together, laughing and making funny faces. I wanted to remember every little moment of this special day. Then someone knocked on the door. It was my dad. He walked in and stopped, looking at me with tears in his eyes. "You are my little girl," he said softly. I hugged him tightly. "Let's go," he whispered. It was time to walk down the aisle. The music started playing and my heart raced. My dad held my hand tightly, giving me strength. The doors opened and I saw everyone smiling. The garden looked magical with flowers everywhere. At the end of the aisle, Daniel was waiting for me. I took a deep breath and started walking. My dress moved softly, and my veil floated behind me. I looked at Daniel and he looked at me. His eyes were full of love. In that moment, all my nerves disappeared. I felt safe and happy. As I got closer, I saw Daniel smiling. His eyes sparkled, and I could see he was also emotional. I smiled back, holding back tears of joy. This was our moment, the one we had dreamed about. Felt like time had stopped. Finally, I reached the altar. My dad kissed my forehead and whispered, "I'm so proud of you." Then he placed my hand in Daniel's. Daniel squeezed my hand gently. We were ready to start our new life together. The officiant welcomed everyone and spoke about love. I listened carefully, feeling every word in my heart. Daniel and I held hands, looking into each other's eyes. Felt like we were the only two people in the world. Then it was time for the vows. Daniel went first. "I promise to love you forever," he said. His voice was strong but emotional. I felt tears in my eyes. Every word he said was filled with love. I had never felt so happy. Now it was my turn. I took a deep breath and smiled. "I promise to love, support, and cherish you always," I said. My voice trembled with emotion, but I meant every word. This was the happiest moment of my life. The officiant looked at us and smiled. "Do you, Daniel, take her as your wife?" "I do," he said. "Do you, Emily, take him as your husband?" "I do," I answered. With those words, my dream had finally come true. After the ceremony, it was time for the reception. The garden was beautifully decorated with lights and flowers. Everyone was happy, talking and laughing. Then the music started. It was time for our first dance as husband and wife. Daniel held my hand and led me to the dance floor. The song was soft and romantic. We started moving slowly, just enjoying the moment. His arms around me made me feel safe. I rested my head on his shoulder, feeling his warmth. As we danced, I saw our family and friends watching. Some were smiling, some had tears in their eyes. It was a beautiful moment, filled with love. I felt like we were in our own little world. When the song ended, Daniel kissed my forehead. Everyone clapped and cheered. My heart was full of happiness. I knew that this was just the beginning of our beautiful journey together. The rest of the night was perfect. We ate delicious food, laughed, and shared beautiful moments with our loved ones. The wedding cake was amazing. We cut it together and fed each other a small piece. Everyone cheered and clapped. Later, my dad gave a speech. He talked about love, family, and how happy he was for us. His words touched my heart. Daniel's best friend also gave a funny and sweet speech. Everyone laughed and enjoyed the moment. As the night continued, we danced with our guests. The music was joyful, and the atmosphere was full of love. I felt like a princess in a fairy tale. Every moment was special, and I wanted to remember it forever. At the end of the night, we looked at each other and smiled. "We did it," Daniel said. "Yes," I whispered. It was the most magical day of my life. I felt grateful, happy, and full of love. As we left the wedding, I held Daniel's hand tightly. Our friends and family waved and cheered. I looked at my husband and smiled. This was the beginning of our new life together. My heart was full of love and excitement. We got into the car and drove away, watching the lights of the wedding fade in the distance. I rested my head on Daniel's shoulder. "I love you," I whispered. "I love you too," he said, kissing my forehead. Felt so lucky. That night I thought about everything that had happened. The beautiful dress, the vows, the first dance. It was everything I had ever dreamed of. My wedding day was perfect. I would never forget it. Now our adventure begins. We have so many dreams and plans for the future. But no matter what happens, I know one thing for sure. We will always have love, and that is the greatest gift of all.